Okay. Can everyone see my screen? Welcome to today's virtual robotics fun hour. I'm your host. My name is Ellen. As you know, this is every Friday at 7 p.m. and there will be 4 modules: online resource, builder zone, CAD topics, and robocode. And please remember to mute yourself when you're not talking or asking any questions. And please make sure to keep the chat free of any spam or random chatting, and keep it clear for questions. So as you know, we are contributing to Folding at Home to help find a cure for the coronavirus. So if you want to join, click on the link here. And this is our team number. Remember that we are printing 3D personal protective equipment for medical workers and other essential workers. So if you want to donate, you can go to our GoFundMe link, which is here. Also, the winners of the Rubik's Cube competition last week, please email your home address to technicbots.team@gmail.com, which is here, so you can receive your prize in the mail. It is a 3D printed little keychain of our team's logo with your name on the back. And the winners that we recorded are listed here, but if you won and your name isn't here, then just email us anyway, and we'll make sure to send you one. So for today's online resource, we'll be learning about the Raspberry Pi, which is a cheap credit card sized computer. It can be programmed in Scratch or Python, and if you want to buy one, you can buy one at this link here for around $30 to $40. You can do a lot of computer projects and other hardware things with it. So this website called Raspberry Pi is in this link here, and you can sign up for free with your email. It offers a wide variety of projects that you can do with or without a Raspberry Pi, such as making games or websites, music, programming the robots, or doing digital art. And each project has step-by-step instructions on how you can complete it. So Raspberry Pi has both software and hardware projects, and this one is an example of a software project you can do in Scratch. So the basic rundown of this is Raspberry Pi offers you instructions on how to make a project in Scratch. Like, for example, this one called Deep Sea Sushi is making a game where you move around a shark to catch a fish in Scratch. Like that. So basically, Raspberry Pi will give you a curriculum of what you will learn by doing this project, and any materials that you need. Usually for software projects like this one, you just need to download an online coder or something like that. So as you can see, they have step-by-step instructions on how to set up Scratch and follow and code your game to complete a project. Okay. Sorry, let me just get back to the tabs here. Okay. The Raspberry Pi also has hardware projects such as programming robots with the Raspberry Pi. So if you have certain materials at home and batteries and a Raspberry Pi, you can do one of these at home easily without any supervision. So for example, this one teaches you how to build a simple robot buggy to follow Python commands. And as usual, it has things that you will learn and the material list here. So if you want to do one of these hardware projects related to robots, you can always purchase the Raspberry Pi at the link that I listed in the first slide, and other materials on Amazon or something. Now we're going to have Derek do the builder zone on Swerve Drive. Can you share your screen?
No.
Okay, I'll just share my screen and you can walk through the slides.
Okay. Okay, so today I'll be teaching you guys about Swerve Drive. So Swerve Drive. So first of all, what is Swerve Drive, right? So Swerve Drive is a special type of drivetrain where instead of a usual robotic drivetrain where each wheel is in a fixed direction, in a swerve drive, each wheel is also individually powered, meaning that it can spinning forward and backward, but each wheel's the entire wheel can be turned in another direction. So comparing this, it can be similarly compared to the front two wheels of your car. So you can know that the entire wheel can point to a different direction. In swerve drive, this is really similar, except for the wheel can pretty much point in any direction. So this is actually really common in FRC because of the larger of capacity that FRC offers rather than FTC. So this is another design. It's not in just FTC Robotics, but NASA also designed their very own swerve drive car. This NASA designed this for their own purposes, for maybe some future exploration, and you'll see that right here. Yeah, so you can see that the robot, each wheel on this NASA is built, it can turn individually, so it can also spin in circles. And this makes the entire chassis very maneuverable because it can allow the robot to travel sideways, diagonally, but it can also keep the NASA car facing in the same orientation. So the swerve drive gives the vehicle a lot of agility. So now we can take a look at Swerve Drive and actually FTC. So this is a team that designed a Swerve Drive for the FTC chassis. So right now you can see two drivetrains on the field. One of them is a Swerve Drive, but as you can see, it's really fast. It can turn and spin in almost virtually any direction when compared to the regular Magnum chassis. I know this may be a little bit laggy, but this is the best that we can offer to display. And you can always go onto YouTube and search this up if you're interested for a better perspective. Yeah, so right, you can see that this robot's like spinning around in circles, which is something that a regular fixed drivetrain can also do, but not as well and not as fast. So now to just give a quick summary of the pros and cons of the Swerve drivetrain. Some of the Swerve drivetrain pros include maximum maneuverability at high speeds. That means it can go multi-directional movement, but it can maintain its speed. Unlike some other drivetrains where when you're moving diagonally, it might not be able to move as smoothly or as fast. With this extra maneuverability, this gives the robot a better chance to navigate our FTC field better, or the game field better, so it can easily get around some objects that otherwise wouldn't be as easy for other drivetrains. This also goes along to saying that it's easier to line up for scoring. It can keep the same orientation but go side to side. This also makes the overall swerve drive. If a robot is running swerve drive, it's going to be quite hard to defend against since it can change directions really quickly. And it has better pushing power. So this is one thing that separates swerve drive from the Mechnum. The Mechnum drive can also go sideways and diagonally, but the swerve drive maintains its pushing power. So that means it has a more stronger force, and so it is a lot better than the Mechnum when compared to going sideways and trying to push something. But along with the swerve drive pros of extreme maneuverability comes with its own cons. This swerve drive component is hard to build because it has a lot of things going on rather than just a fixed one where you can just attach a motor to. And this also makes it hard to code. Along with the multiple parts integrated into the swerve drive component, this also makes it hard to fix if a failure occurs because you have to go in and there's multiple gears and stuff connecting each other together. So you have to, it's hard to go in and try to fix something if something fails during between or matches. With all the components, the swerve drive is also quite heavy since it uses 4 motors, 4 servos or 8 motors, because one motor needs to drive the wheel so it can go forward and backward, but another servo motor has to make sure that it can orientate the swerve drive itself. So sometimes the driver, it has potential issues when driving. The driver has to relearn some controls when driving. That might be a con. But also, overall, the swerve drive, it limits the robot design. As you can see on all of the swerve drives, all the 4 wheels have to be on the corners, or else the swerve drive, you really wouldn't have enough space. So it gives a limit on the space allocation. Now, we'll move on to the CAD topics.
Okay.
Max, can you share a screen, or is it
It
also
says
disabled?
that the host disabled screen share.
Okay, it should work now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
Okay, so in today's CAD session, we're going to be talking about simulating and animating. The model that I'm going to be using to demonstrate this is the RevMiniBot. It's just a small robotic kit that you can find on the Rev website that has instructions and materials that tells you how to build it in CAD and also in real life. So simulating in CAD, why would you do it? It's just a quick way to show how a mechanism can work before physically building it. You can use it by, it's used from mechanical mechanisms such as gear trains. How we do it, it's using different joints that you can manually control a CAD object. So some examples of these joints are revolute, which makes the object rotate in a circle, and also slider, which makes the object go back and forth. So now I'm going to be showing a demonstration of how a simulation works. So this is the RevMiniBot that I built. And then these flags are revolute joints, which means that I can make them turn in a circle. So if I drag the slider in a circle, you can see that it's making the gears and also the wheels turn. So that's just a quick way to show how the robot would actually move before building it. So that's really useful. The way that I made it so that the gears turn with each other was using motion links, which help connect joints so that as one joint moves, another one moves. Next is animating. So animating is actually really similar to simulating. Animation clips are used to demonstrate to others the design and the functions of any 3D model in CAD. And it's just mechanisms of any 3D model that you want to demonstrate. An example is the navigation of a robot on the FTC field. So how we do it is in Fusion 360, there is an animation workspace. And in that workspace, you can animate the model by moving it with sliders. And then once you move it to a specific location, it automatically saves. And you can change the speed and duration by changing the time. And after that, it can automatically save the location and the speed of the clip that you want to show. So this is just a demo of what I animated the RevMini bot moving around an FTC field. Yeah. Now we can go to the robocode. Yeah, that was it for CAD. Wait, Ellen, that was it for CAD.
I think screen sharing isn't disabled, right? Byron, can you share your screen?
Okay. Screen. So, are we moving on to Robocode right now?
Oh yeah.
All right, cool. All right, hey everybody, it's Byron, and this is another session of Robocode. So today this is the Eclipse. This is the Eclipse stage. Again, we recommend we use Eclipse. You guys use Eclipse for your coding. And I saw some messages in the chat earlier that says some people still don't have their Robocode or Eclipse or whatever installed. And for help with that, you can either ask after the Q&A or earlier in the chat, Coach Vong, the coach of 8565, put links to several docs that have instructions on how to install Robocode and install Eclipse, and install Java. So if you need any help, we recommend you guys check on those docs. And after that, if you guys still need help, email me or ask in chat, and we'll be happy to help you guys. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's move on to the lesson. So last time, because we didn't have a lot of time, I had to skip over a lot of the radar lesson that I planned. So today we're going to be going over it again, and this time it's going to be much more in depth, so you guys can actually understand the principles of how to make a radar that locks on to other robots. Okay, so a few brief things about the radars and Robocode first. So let's start up a battle between two random robots. So
if I do the same thing,
my bad, the battle speed's up to max. Okay.
will you pick them up? You will. But
let's start a battle between two just random robots. Where's my first robot? My first robot. All right, and you can see that here the robots are spinning their radars around, and this is really important because radars are what allow your robots to see the other robot. And once you scan a robot, the on-scan robot event is triggered, and this gives you a bunch of information about about the robot that you scanned, what its energy is, what direction it's moving in, and all kinds of stuff. That's really important for helping you both dodge bullets and to help you target enemy robots and shoot them down. So let's stop this battle and go over the radar of my first robot. So if you saw in the robocode there, my first robot only spins its radar around and it fires whenever it sees a robot. It's okay for like a basic sample robot, but it's a lot less good for serious battles because this means that when you're just spinning your radar around, like over 3/4 of the time, you're not actually scanning the opponent's robot info. So you don't know if they shot bullets or not. You don't know what direction they're moving during that time, and it's really bad. So what you want to do, at least early on, is you want your radar to lock on to the robot it scans so that it's continually tracking that same robot and it can get all the info from that robot, dodge the bullets fired by that robot, and try to effectively track that bullet so you can fire and hit that robot with your bullets. So that's why we want to make a lock-on robot, a lock-on radar. And you may have seen that in our previous tournaments. We saw several robots that had radars that locked on and then just kept firing at their target robot until they were destroyed. So with that out of the way, I'm actually going to be walking you guys through coding a very simple lock-on radar. So let's open up the source editor and close all these random bots. And we are going to make a brand new robot, okay? New robot. I'm going to call it lock on bot. And you can name it anything. You can name it anything you want. Okay, sure. And I'm gonna put in my package BL. Remember, you want your package name to be the same as your initials. That's the recommended. That's the recommended thing. And you want all your robots generally to be in the same package.
It works so smoothly when it does.
So this is a brand new lock-on bot. It's pretty basic right now. It's just a default code, and we're gonna start making changes to make its radar lock on to the first robot it scans. So first things first, we need to start changing our robot into advanced robot. So instead of having our robot right here say extends robot, we're going to have it extends advanced robot. And a word of advice is whenever you make a change to a robot that you already have, you probably want to save and compile it just to make sure it works. And if you save and compile it one by one, that'll make sure you know you're not making errors. And then if you type something wrong and you try to compile it and it gets messed up right away, then you immediately know that that line of code you just wrote is the one that's wrong, and it's a lot easier for you to debug. But anyways, now we've made it extends advanced robot, and this is really important because it gives the robot access to a lot of different methods that it doesn't have in the simpler robot. So advanced robot just lets it do more things that I wasn't able to do before. So and then what we want to do is add these two lines: set adjust gun for robot turn true and set adjust radar for gun turn true. So I'm just gonna copy these in. These will be on the slides after, and they were also on the slides. These exact line of codes were on the slides we sent out last week. So you can easily access them there if you need help. And I'll show you guys a page on the RoboWiki that basically explains the exact same thing. So here we put in set adjust gun for robot turn and set adjust radar for gun turn. And these two lines are super important Again, I'm just going to compile. And that's because these are basically what detach your gun from your robot. So I'm going to start at another battle to show you guys what I'm talking about. So here we have these two My First robots, and you can see that when they're spinning around, their gun spins with it. When they're spinning around the radar, and when they're spinning around the robot, the gun and the radar of the robot both spin with it. And well, that's pretty convenient and allows you to worry about less things. It's also bad if you want something like an infinite lock loop, because even though you want your radar to be infinitely locked onto the target robot, you don't want your robot to be constantly facing towards that robot. You want it to move around. So you want it to move around and turn its gun around. So you don't want those to be turning together, and that's what this is for. These two lines will delink your gun from your robot and delink your radar from your gun. So now whenever you turn your robot, you're not going to be turning your radar with it. And that's super important. So it's pretty good practice to just put these in to every new robot you make, because even though it's harder at first because you're not going to get your gun automatically turning, it's going to be a lot better in the long run because it's going to allow you to do a lot more things. But moving on,
Video, but I thought about it a little bit. I still
the first thing we want to do, the first actual radar code we want to add is to set it to turn right infinity degrees. So it looks ridiculous, but this is the easiest way to get your robot to start spinning. Now, for now, once we add this into the main while true loop, it's just going to start spinning infinitely, just like it did before. And that's because whenever you set it to turn to infinity, obviously it's not going to stop. It's going to keep on turning. So this basically just lets it spin, and your robot spin in a circle in the quickest way possible. But we don't just want it to spin in a circle, right? We want to let it lock onto a robot. So, and we do that with on-scanned robot event. So basically what we want to be doing is spinning the robot around by setting it to turn right infinity degrees. We're going to be spinning the radar around until we scan another robot. And that's when we want to start locking on. So we want to change the handler in our on-scanned robot event. So this is going to trigger, the code in this is going to trigger whenever you scan a robot. So here's where we want to add our radar code so that whenever you scan a robot, you're going to keep scanning that robot. And we can do that with the help of this line of code. Okay, so I'm just going to copy and paste it in, but I'm going to be explaining every part. So don't worry about that. Because this part is really, really important. So first thing you'll notice is that we're declaring a variable. If you don't know what variables are, then it's super important for coding in like basically every coding language. So really do look into that. Again, we don't have the time to be teaching you the basics of Java in this class. We're only going to be teaching robocode. So if you want to know more, then look it up yourself and try to learn, because it's really important. Anyways, we're creating this variable called radar turn, and it's calculated using get heading radar radians, get bearing radians, and get radar heading radians. So it's a lot to unpack. So let's go over every single term. So get heading radians is a method that basically gives you the heading of your own robot. What degrees your robot is pointing at. So if it's pointing straight up towards the top of the robocode map, the heading's gonna be something like 0. And if it's pointing toward the west, the heading is going to be something like 90 degrees. I'm pretty sure those values aren't right, but you get the idea of what heading is. And then you have e.getBearing radians. So this e part is really important, because if you remember, scan robot passes in the scan robot event e. And if you remember from our events lesson a few weeks back, this e parameter actually gives you a bunch of information about the robot you scanned. For example, you can do e.get name to get the name of your robot, or e.get energy to get the energy value of your robot. And then like here, when we want to turn our radar, we're doing e.get bearing radians. So another thing to note is that bearing is functionally the same, basically the same thing as heading. Like, I'm pretty sure it's definitely not that simple, but that's how you want to be thinking about it. For now, you want to think of bearing as the same thing as heading. It's the angle that a robot is in. So basically, we're finding the angle of our own robot, and then the angle of the robot we just scanned, and we're adding them together. So, and we're adding them together. And then we're going to be subtracting the final term, get radar heading radians. And this is the angle of the radar. So remember how in our earlier code we delinked our radar from our robot. And this is really important because now the heading of our robot isn't necessarily the same heading of our radar. So we need to get the heading of our radar and subtract it from the heading of our robot. And that gets the effective heading of our robot. And then we're going to add that to the bearing of the robot we just scanned. And that's going to get you radar turn. And what radar turn is basically the angle that you're going to need to turn your radar to move it to where the enemy robot is and allow you to keep that radar on your robot. So this part is the original. And then after we do this whole process and calculate radar turn, we want to set radar turn right radians. So basically, just get your robot to turn right, radar turn amount of times. Times 2, and I'll explain the times 2 soon. Okay, one important thing to note here is that you don't want to be using set radar turn right, okay? Because it's set to use default degrees. Instead, we want to be using set radar turn right radians, because if you can see here, we call get heading radians, get bearing radians. All these methods are in the radians unit, so we don't want to be turning it a degrees amount, because that's going to mess up a lot of things. If you prefer to work in degrees, then you can delete this, change this to get heading degrees, get bearing degrees, and so on and so forth, if you prefer to work in degrees. Functionally, they're the same as long as you keep it consistent. That's really important. So we're going to compile our robot. Utils dot normal relative angle degrees. Okay. Yeah. Another really important thing to remember is that you need to import all the methods you need. So right here, this star usually imports everything we need in robocode, but there's a few things that it doesn't come with, like utils. And utils has a lot of functions that are useful, like normal relative angle degrees, which basically converts a degrees value into the degrees value that robocode wants. That works with robocode's physics. So if you're calculating a degrees value you want to turn in or move your gun in, you usually want to put it through normal relative angle first before you tell your robot to turn that amount. So now that we imported utils, this should compile successfully. Utils
Byron, check the path. Import robocode.util.utils. Check the chat.
Import that util. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Usually for my robots, I copy paste my first robot, so I never actually had to import this type myself because it's usually in the sample robots, these imports. But I guess when you make a brand new robot, the default code doesn't come with this import. So import robocode.util.utils. Yeah. finally, we compiled successfully. Yeah, so normal relative angle is really important. Okay, and then one last thing to go over before we test out our new lock-on radar. Okay, so, and that's this ×2. So basically what this ×2 does is it gives your robot a margin of error. Okay, so sometimes when you turn, when it's ×1, when it's just radar turn, in theory, it should work fine because your radar should go exactly the right amount to stay on the enemy robot at all times. But it doesn't always work like that because sometimes your radar slips and then you lose track of the enemy robot. Could be due to a variety of reasons, like maybe your robot is slow, or maybe the opponent moved in a certain direction that messed up the radar. But if you get like a small amount off, then you'll lose your lock, and that's going to be really bad because now your radar isn't locked onto anything. You don't have any info about the enemy robot. So what we do is instead of setting it to exactly radar turn, we multiply it by 2. So even if it doesn't exactly hit the even if it doesn't exactly find the enemy robot with just radar turn, if we multiply it by 2, that's gonna push you a bit to scan the enemy robot again and lock on to it, unlock onto it successfully. So this basically just increases the reliability of our lock on a whole lot. So let's save it and compile it again, and then the lock on radar should be functioning now. So we're gonna test it out real quick. All right. So we're gonna add a lock on bot, and let's add just a dummy robot for my first robot. This is a great way to test your robots, is to just add different sample robots in a battle and see how your robot does. Okay, so you can see here, it may look like the radar is like flashing a bunch, but you can see that it's actually that the line is really actually really accurately locking on to the my first robot, even though it's so even though it's not shooting anything, the radar has a really accurate lock. And you can see that sometimes like this, it messes up, but it always keeps scanning and then it gets a lock on it again. So that's what the ×2 that I talked about earlier is for. And then one other important thing to notice is that it's not hitting any shots, right? It's doing horribly. And that's because we added in this line that says set adjust gun for robot turn. So now we're not adjusting the gun anymore. We're only adjusting the radar. So we're actually just shooting in this one direction. So this may seem really bad at first, and it is if you're used to just like firing whenever you scan a robot. But this works out to be a whole lot better in the long run because it allows you to actually choose a good firing angle for your gun that may not it may not be exactly where you see the robot. Sometimes the robot might move and you need to shoot your gun a little to the right or a little to the left, and without setting your adjustment so that it's delinked, you can't do that. So it's really important to do this. It's going to be harder at first to aim and to turn and all these things, but it'll be much better later on. Okay, so we've locked on our radar. So we've created a simple lock on radar, and it really is like pretty simple. So if you just add these 2 lines of code to your robot, you'll have a pretty effective radar that just locks on to the first robot it sees and then keeps on scanning it. And you can do with that information what you will. You probably just want to shoot at the robot or ram at the robot until or do whatever with that info until you're the winner of your battle. Yeah. So the lock on robot radar we just made is neat. Yeah. It's super important to remember that the lock on robot radar actually isn't the best radar for our 4-on-4 battle, because if you lock onto just one robot, you don't have any info on the other robots. So actually for really advanced 4v4 robots, actually spin the robot around like before, except they keep track of all the info they get for each of the robots they scan. and that's really advanced. If you want to know more about it, you can check out the page on the Robot Wiki for Radar. It has a lot of good information, and it has another explanation for the infinite lock that we just went over in case you guys didn't understand or want some more info on it. Okay. Yeah, and then Robot Challenge. This is it's similar to our first. It's similar to the Robot Challenge you may have saw last time, but it's slightly different. You want to you don't want to lock onto one robot. You want to store the value of all the robots you scan and track the difference between old and new values. So this is more build up. It's going to help learn how to dodge bullets. So if you're interested in learning more, definitely check out this Robot Challenge. Yeah. And then before we move on to the tournament for today, I just wanted to go over sharing robot insights. So last two tournaments we had, you'll remember that you guys will remember that I made the winners of the tournaments share thoughts about the code and the thoughts that went into the robots. And this isn't just because we want you to feel embarrassed. It's because we want you guys to teach everybody as much as we can. And the way we do that is by sharing information. Who keeps drawing on my screen? Okay. Please, please don't draw on my screen, guys. I mean, it's funny, but it's really distracting. Anyways, the winner of each division's tournament is expected to share thoughts about their code. And this is going to help us all learn together and help us all share different tips and tricks that we find when learning. So, yeah. So make sure you take it seriously if you win and really try to talk about what thoughts went into developing your robot. And if you're confident in your robot, if you're really confident that you win, make sure that you think about what you say before the round, so you're prepared when you do win. Good luck. And then, without further ado, let's move on to what you've all been waiting for, the tournament. So this time we actually only had 7 people submit. So these aren't going to be qualification rounds like before. We're going to be moving on to straight 3-round finals for each match. So if you guys want to spend more time in your tournament and see how your own robot does, make sure to submit your own robot. You don't have to make a new robot every time, because I know that can be a little exhausting. But try to change your old robots and submit your changes so that we can have the best tournament we can. Because it's not that fun with only 7 people. If we have more submissions, we can make a bigger and better tournament. So that's enough talking about the tournament. Let's actually go on to the robot battles. So if you look at tinyurl.com/robocode battle bracket, you can see the schedule for yourself. And then later on in results, you can see the results. And if you look at my screen right now, you can see the actual battle that's going on. So keep in mind that since there's only one match for each division, all of these matches will be final matches. So they're going to have 3 rounds like before. So let's start with the Division 1. And it's going to be all 4 division robots against each other. Acid by, I believe it's Andrew. Bob Minion by Michelle. Christina by Christina. And Mojo Jojo the Destroyer by Selena. All right, so it's gonna be a
Dummy
3-round
robot.
battle. It's
Wait.
gonna be a 3-round battle. Without further
Do we
ado,
have the dummy robot?
a dummy robot. Not for this round, because there's all 4 here. In
Okay.
Division 2, we have 3 robots and 1 dummy. Yeah. So without further ado, let's start the battle. Okay. A lot of bullets flying around right off the start of the bat. Bob Minion looks really heavily damaged. Christina's also taking some damage. Looks like Mojo Jojo the Destroyer looking pretty good. Acid has the highest health total out of all the robots right now. Bob Minion falls. Christina has already fallen. Acid is the winner of the first round in Division 1. A lot of bullets firing around in the second round of Division 1. Not a lot of bullets seem to be hitting though. Ooh. And Bob Minion gets destroyed. It just ran right into a bullet. Acid seems to be stuck against the wall. doesn't look like it's firing or shooting or moving anymore. So all that's left is Mojo Jojo Destroyer to clean up. And if Mojo Jojo actually got this disabled from the energy, which means that in a few seconds, it's actually gonna be disabled from inactivity, which means the acid is actually the winner of that round, despite getting stuck in a corner. That's interesting. Oh, it looks like acid is stuck in a corner again. Well, will it survive this time around? It looks like Mojo Jojo and Christina are both focused on each other. And acid is just standing there fine. As Christina and Mojo Jojo duke it out. Christina doesn't look to be firing a whole lot either. Oh, Mojo Jojo's gonna take it down. Let's see if it manages to take down acid this time. Or will it get disabled? It doesn't look like it will. It's landing a lot of shots. And Mojo Jojo's gonna take that one. But as it turns out, the overall winner of Division 1 is going to be Acid. So, and these are the results for Division 1. First place, Acid, with a score of 838. Second place, Mojo Jojo the Destroyer, with a score of 767. Third place, Christina, with a score of 182. And fourth place, Bob Minion, with a score of 70. Good job, everybody. Okay. So, after the Division 1 battle, we're going to move straight to the Division 2 finals. So that's going to be Bot 1 by David, Rammer from Nathan Ma, which won last time's tournament, Kit by Adrian, and a dummy robot, which is going to be my first robot. That's going to be explained, and that's explained in the battle bracket. But basically, if there's not enough robots to make a full 4v4, we're going to put in dummy robots to keep it consistent. Anyways, let's start off the Division 2 battle. It's going to be all three of these robots, Bot 1, Kit, and Rammer, and then my first robot from the sample package. 3 rounds. Without further ado, let's start the battle. Oh, a lot of colors coming in. Oh, Rammer's doing what it does best, but it gets taken out really quickly. Rammer, the winner of last time's tournament, gets taken out along with the My First Robot. Now it's battle between Kit and Bot 1, and Kit takes it down. Ooh, Rammer's just ramming again. It looks like, oh, it's not taking nearly as much damage this time. It's gonna be the winner. Looks like other robots still are having trouble dealing with the ramming from Rammer. Ooh, watch out. And Rammer is going to put on a really strong showing and take Division 1 again. Take Division 2 again with a score of 1,257. Rammer is going to be first place. With a score of 554. Bot 1 is actually second place with a score of 468. Kit is actually third place. That's surprising at round 1. And then obviously the dummy robot, my first robot, is 103. So I mean, good job everybody. This is actually really cool because all you guys did significantly better than my first robot. So it's clear that you guys all put a lot of work into your robots, and it's actually pretty close between the 2 second place robots, with Rammer again being the undisputed winner. Looks like not a lot of robots can deal with that really aggressive ramming. That's interesting. Okay, so now that we have our winners for our 2 divisions, let's have both of them talk about their robot development processes and the thoughts that went behind the robot. So I'm going to be opening up both the robots in Source Editor and going over them with you guys. So here the winner is going to be Acid, I believe. So let's open up Acid, and can we have Andrew? Andrew's the coder, correct? Yeah. Can we have Andrew talk about his robot?
So what I coded was I mostly only focused about firepower. So if I hit a robot, I would do a lot of damage.
Yeah.
All really what I cared about.
That's kind of funny. So a quirk about robocode is that you can set the firepower, but actually, I don't think a lot of you guys know this, but the maximum firepower is 3, and if you try to set power as like 1,000,000 or like 9,000, it's actually gonna set it right back to 3. So you're actually only firing like 3
Doesn't
power
matter.
bullets. But even with that, you still took Division 1. So is there anything else you put in your robot?
No, not really.
Oh, yeah. So and I noticed a couple things. During the matches, your robot seemed to get stuck in the wall a lot, and then it just like stopped firing. Were you testing this robot? Did that ever happen to you?
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any idea why that happens?
Because on when hit a wall, all I said was fire. I didn't say any movement.
Oh, that's really interesting. It says when on hit wall back, back 200. Well, it does move, but it looks like it's not really getting out of that wall correctly. And when you hit a wall, you can't scan or anything. So that's really interesting. So I guess you're gonna have to do some more testing with that to figure out what to do when you hit a wall so that it doesn't get stuck. Because if you hit a wall and you don't get lucky, you're soon gonna get taken out. Okay. But that's for Division 1. Can we have Nathan talk about your robot? I know you were the winner of last week's tournament too. Can you talk about if you made any changes this time and just go over your coding process again? Let's open up Grammar.
So the robot's exactly the same, except I took out a wobble function because before it would move in like a S shape to get to the target, but no one actually has smart aim that can actually predict the movement. So it's just a waste of time. So I just made it go in a straight line to the target.
Oh, okay. So before it was curving, and now it's just moving straight. Okay, that's interesting. Does anyone have any questions to ask about Nathan's robot? This has been like super dominant in the tournament, and not a lot of robots can deal with it. So if you guys have any questions to ask Nathan about like the process, feel free to ask them in the Zoom chat. It's a really good way to improve. Yeah, and Coach Gru brought up an interesting thing earlier. Which is that RAM damage is ×2 because the score system prefers ramming. So basically in Robocode you get points for dealing damage to robots, both with bullets and ramming. But when you score, the score points for dealing damage with ramming is a lot more than dealing damage with bullets. So that's part of why Rammer keeps getting rank 1. So
it's also really easy to counter. So
yeah, the Rammer strategy definitely does have a lot of counters, but it looks like not a lot of robots in Division 2 have figured that out yet. Do you have you looked into ways to counter the Rammer strategy, Nathan?
You just keep backing up. If you every time you're hit by a bullet, you take the position of it and then you move like in an erratic pattern, and the whole thing just falls apart. And also if you're continuously moving, it just never catches up.
Yeah, because all robots move at the same speed. So if you're always moving away from Rammer, it can't really catch up to you. So yeah, so that's really important for you guys. Rammer has been really dominant these past few tournaments. So if you want to do well in Division 2, you better figure out a good way to deal with the Rammer strategy. And one last thing I want to talk about, a really good way to find out strategies and ways to deal with things like this is the RoboWiki. So I've been putting a lot of RoboWiki links in our lesson, but it's not just useful for that. There's a lot of info about like different strategies. Like I have this pattern matching strategy open. It's really effective, and that's like one of the top ways to aim your gun. And there's actually a lot of info about like top robots, and you can even find like the code for some of them and the thought process that went into them. And if you just search up Google RoboWiki, you'll find it right there. And yeah, just look around. There's a lot of really good info on there. And if you look into it in your own time, you can learn a lot that we just don't have the time to cover in our lessons. Yeah, okay. And if that's all, if there's anything else, I'm just going to move on to Q&A. Also, yeah, and then, yeah, Alex, I'll address your questions real quick in Q&A. So we're gonna be holding like a 15-20 minute Q&A session after 8. After 8, and you guys can stay behind and ask any questions. But after 8, you're free to go. Just one last thing that you need to talk about. If you guys have any compiler errors or part of your robot that doesn't stop working, we encourage you guys to look for your own solutions. And if you can't, just email us. Email either me or the TechnicBots, the email that sent you the info, and then we'll get back to you and we'll do our best to help you guys. And if you are going to email us, make sure to do it as early as possible, because if you do it later, we may not be able to get your code back to you, and you may not have it in time to submit. So if you guys have any questions, just email us and do it as early as possible so we can get back to you with help, and you guys can submit to the forums and put your own robot in the tournament. Okay, that's basically all I have to say. So I'm gonna be moving on to the Q&A section. Okay, Alex, what do I do if my Visual Studio Auto changes to C++ and not Java, and then I can't code robocode? Okay, so we recommend that for an IDE you use Eclipse. There's a whole series of articles about how to make Eclipse specifically work with robocode. If you really want to use Visual Studio, then try to look into ways online to link it with robocode, because I don't think there's an explicit robocode article about Visual Studio. That's why we recommended you guys to link to use Eclipse, because Eclipse does have specific instructions on linking with robocode. But yeah, if you want to use an IDE, we recommend you guys use Eclipse. Otherwise, we can't really help you. Visual Studio auto changes to C++ and not Java. I'm pretty sure on Visual Studio Launch, you get to choose your language, like when you very first install Visual Studio. But I've only used Visual Studio to code with C++. I use like Eclipse and Android Studio to code with Java. So I'm sorry, I don't really know how to help you. If you again, we recommend you guys use Eclipse. Can you send me a link for Eclipse robocode? Yeah, sure. Let me grab it. It should be something like tinyurl.com/robo. Whatever. I'll just pull up the actual RoboWiki page. Yeah, the link is right here, and this is I just sent it in chat, and you should be able to find that link along with others in our robocode setup instructions doc. The link to that was sent in a few slides back, a couple of the slides backwards. I'll try to add it into the next slide in case any of you guys missed the earlier sessions. Yeah, but there's a whole link with instructions on how to install Java, robocode, and Eclipse. I was here last week for my first time. Yeah, that's the problem. Can you fire faster? I'm pretty sure you can already fire pretty fast. Like if you see the tournament, a lot of robots are like spraying bullets. If you're asking a way to like exceed that, no. The way Robocode works basically is the time is like a series of events called like turns. On each turn, every robot can move a specific amount, turn a specific amount, and like shoot like I think it's one time every turn, something like that. So you can't exceed that fire limit, and you shouldn't have to. Uh, it's better to fire like a small amount of accurate bullets than a lot of like inaccurate bullets, because firing bullets takes energy, and if you fire a lot of bullets that don't hit, you're gonna waste all your energy, and you're gonna get your robot disabled. Yeah. Yeah, it's import robocode util.utils. Yeah, that was my bad earlier on. I just tried import robocode.utils without the other util. Might be infinitely backing up into the wall. Yeah, that's to Alex, I think. Yeah, that's the problem, because when you run into a wall and and you set it to back, it's backing up into the wall, and that's causing problems. So you might want to make it move ahead or something or other. Apparently, I can't open robocode. Alex, what do you mean by you can't open robocode? Can you move and turn at the same time? That's interesting. I actually don't know the answer to that question. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure you cannot.
You actually, I think his question is more with like, can you do forward and turn at the same time? I think they can do that because there are two different APIs. There's synchronous API doing head, forward, back, right? There's a synchronous API, but there's set ahead, set turn. Those are like asynchronous APIs. So by like set ahead and set turn at the same time, they can do move and turn.
Oh.
I don't know if that's.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what they want.
Okay. Yeah. So Coach Gru explained something really interesting. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Coach Gru, that ahead and back and those methods do it instantly, whereas like set ahead, set turn like adds it to a queue and then it all executes at the same time.
Yes, you're correct. They're like blocking, non-blocking. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to do things at the same time, you should use methods like set ahead, set adjust gun for robot turn. I'm gonna share my screen real quick because I have a good. Yeah. So you can see here I do set adjust gun for robot turn instead of just turn radar right. So instead of doing, oh sorry, this is rammer, but let's open up my robot that I just created, lock on bot. So you can see that I do set turn radar right instead of the normal turn radar right. And what this does is it executes that at the end. So if you want to move and turn at the same time, you should use the set commands. And you can only use set commands if it's an advanced robot, only not if it's a robot. So make sure to change that if you want to do that. Oh, also, unless you think we skipped over your question, you don't have to like copy and paste it a bunch. I probably already saw your question, but like I'm answering other questions and I'll move on to yours later. Anyways, can you show that again? Yeah, sure. Okay, so basically here I have set turn right. Okay, so basically there's two different types of commands. There's the normal ahead. So when robocode sees this ahead, it's gonna move your robot forward immediately. And then there's something like set ahead. This might, I don't think, this might not be the exact syntax for it, but it's something like this. Basically, it has a set at the front. And what this does, it adds it to like a queue sort of. So if we move here, set ahead. So instead of executing instead of executing it immediately whenever it's once
Yeah.
like immediately after it sees this, it's gonna at the end of everything, once it's looped through the entire thing, it's gonna do the set. It's gonna turn the radar right, and it's gonna do the set ahead. It's gonna do all those at the same time.
Yeah, Byron, there's a better example. If you open the example code, I believe there is a swim bot or something like that. That's doing the circular move. It's in the example code of in the example.
Sample.
There is a spin bot. Yeah.
Spin bot.
That's doing the circle. And you can see how it's doing that.
Set turn right.
Yeah, it's doing ahead, but while it's set turn right, it's actually doing the spin, doing the circle by doing that.
Okay.
So that's ahead while turn. It's gonna be a circle. So that could better help to explain how you can do move while turn. It's actually a circle.
Okay. Wait. So set turn right. Okay. So it's gonna. So this code is basically moving and then turning right a bunch. Okay. Yeah. And if you want information, more information about like the Robocode API, what commands do what commands there are, just look up like Robocode Java docs, and there's a whole page that pops up here. I'll share my screen to show you guys an example. Share screen. Yeah. So this is the Robocode Java docs. If you just look it up. You'll find it. And this has all of the classes. And if you look like Advanced Robot, you can see all the methods Advanced Robot has too. And if you look at the methods, you can see like a detailed explanation of what each of them does. So this is a really important tool to learn more. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. I mean, it doesn't look like there's any more questions, so I guess we can end the meeting here.
Yeah, if there are no more questions, we'll just end the meeting now. And remember that we'll be sending out an email after today's meeting this evening containing the link to the slides. And we'll post this recording of this Zoom meeting on our YouTube channel later so you can go back and look. Okay, thank you everyone for attending.
Yeah. Alex Win 06.